Good morning. Good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. Looks like we already have some people here, so that's awesome. Dave Nelson, great to see you, brother. Love having you here. Deepin, good morning. Good morning. Thank you for some of that information. We will be tracking GDP and those job numbers as they come in. So always appreciate those DMs, just making sure I'm on top of it. Roger, good to see you, brother. Love to see you, Roger. Colin, great to see you. JR, 80. Tomato Pete, Liquid Ghost. Who else you got? I think I saw RPM. RPM, good to see you. Gold is at an all-time high. Yeah, gold is looking fantastic. Massive shout out to anyone holding gold. You are doing very well. Very well. I think it's a great indication for cryptocurrency as well, though. Great indication for cryptocurrency. Ronald, good to see you. Snow and Stone, Sunday Slip, Rick, Ivan, Greg. Good morning, brother. I hope everyone's doing well this morning. Just firing up everything on the back end real quick. Appreciate all your guys' patience during that process. I don't know if you guys saw, but if you watched my video last night, I made some comments about how some of these crypto advocacy groups haven't been supporting John Deaton. I actually got in touch with one of them, and one of them said, essentially, they're going to pivot their stance. Now, they make it claim. They claim that, like, oh, this is always happening. I don't really buy it. I think they pivoted their stance because we essentially had a bunch of pissed off people in the XRP community saying, this is insane. Fix this. So I like it. I like knowing that we have that kind of power. Us as a community can make those kinds of changes. And for anyone who did go do something, appreciate you a lot. This is how we get things done in the XRP community, right? Things aren't always given to us like some of these other projects. We have to go out and work for it, but we got it done. TS, Taco Pro, good to see you. Yeah, I was like that too. Who said that? Sunday slide. Yeah. It was quite an interesting night on X. Quite an interesting night. Sometimes you got to though, man. Like someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. And I don't know whether it's a New England thing, me being from New England and just like not caring, like realizing someone's got to put themselves out there and say it, but I'm happy to be the person who says it. And it's nice knowing that I have all you guys at my back to make sure everything stays in line. Guys, make sure to take a quick second, drop that like on the stream. We're just getting started here. We got about 200 people in the chat already. We got some economic data dropping fairly soon. Let me check this out real quick, maybe in 9 minutes. So we'll keep our eye on that economic data. Let's go Patriots. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Mickle. Colin says, Mickle, if the SEC appeals, it's been said that it wouldn't really matter. If that's the case, what's stopping institutions from investing? I disagree. I think an appeal would matter. I know it's not what everyone wants to hear, but like an appeal would make a difference. Taylor, are you actually a Commanders fan? You might be the first Commanders fan I've ever met. I can't tell. I don't know if you're kidding or you're serious. That would be wild. Heck yeah, there you go, Taylor. There you go. Your team changes names on you every other year, but a loyal Commanders fan. Love to see it. A DC sports fan all around. All right. All right. I was answering a question. I got totally sidetracked by Taylor. Taylor, great to have you, brother. It's so nice to have you back in the live streams. Yeah, I think an appeal does matter. I think an appeal absolutely matters. The reason why an appeal really matters is because it's going to sideline a lot of institutions from doing what they want to do. Take a look at what Grayscale just did with their trust. They made it only for accredited investors. Like that wouldn't be happening, I don't think, if the case was fully over. So there's going to continue to be issues on that front. Also, guys, some exciting news. It looks like I did get invited to Swell. So trying to figure that out right now. Could be going to Swell. That'd be interesting. Here for during the hurricane. Where's the hurricane? Is that where is that hurricane happening? I'll tell you right now, it's not in the Northeast. We don't get a hurricane. We had one hurricane in the Northeast, and it was like a category like 1 when I was like a kid. And like it destroyed everything because our infrastructure is not ready for like any kind of wind like that. So like the shoreline was flooded, all the trees are down. Tampa? Okay. It was like a category 1. It destroyed the entire shoreline of where I'm from. It was insane. And I always think it's like not funny, but then I go on and I like see the hurricanes that go through Florida. I'm sitting there like, that is crazy. Like it's built for it, but the difference in like what did the Northeast dirty versus what you guys get down there is insane. Category 5. All right, well, stay safe there, 626. Stay safe. I think because of a lot of the infrastructure, people are like a lot safer and like buildings are built better and they're not as destructive as they were before, but definitely stay safe and um prayers to everyone out there who is going through that. That's obviously no fun to have to deal with. Oh, awesome, TK. Appreciate you reaching out to Stand with Crypto. Yeah, I mean, it's important that we work together. Hurricane Gensler. Yeah, it's another hurricane we've been dealing with. Gary Gensler was on CNBC this morning, actually. I was gonna go live early, but he wasn't talking about anything important, so I was like, eh. Um, no, you're good. You're good. I was like, interesting comment. Yeah, no. Yeah, we had one in the Northeast. It took out everything. My family's such wimps. My mom's such a wimp. We had like power. We had no power for like 2 days, and she got us a hotel. I was like, all right. It's been windy so far. Nothing crazy yet. Gonna hit harder tonight. Okay, yeah, it definitely can't be that bad if if people are joining in from the live stream. So how's that go? Are you like off? Like it is like does everything shut down? Was his hand shaking? I know he was getting some layup questions. He was getting pressed on insider trading from Congress, and he was like, "I can't do anything about it." And they're like, "Why not?" And he's like, "I don't know, just not going to do anything about it." Yep, it was Hurricane Sandy. It was Hurricane Sandy. That was the one that clobbered us. Which it like wasn't even like a real like I guess it was technically a real hurricane, but Jerry Johnson, good to see you. Pink robots matter too. Yeah, what an insane comment. Oh man, there are some very good people in our government. I'll leave it there. But some of the people, it's like who voted for these people? Like that this is going to come off wrong and I'm probably going to face some backlash for this. But there needs to be at some level like some IQ test to vote. Like the people voting for some of these people is absolutely insane. Like the race of robots or the skin color of robots. I have actually personally never seen a robot that was white or black or any kind of race. They look like robots. Like they look like big metal things that walk around. How are you? And for those of you guys who have no idea what we're talking about, this was literally a question the other day during the SEC Senate Banking Committee. Someone asked Gary Gensler, "Are you concerned that all the robots being built right now are white robots?" So you're sitting here watching this live stream saying, "What the heck is this guy talking about? This is absolutely ridiculous." Well, it should make you feel better that this came directly from the representatives in our country. So, huh. Guys, if you're getting here early, make sure to smash that like button. You guys are incredible. Keeping an eye on the charts right now. I think we're going to have a pretty good open today. Open looks good, but nothing that exciting happening on the XRP price chart. I did see that Bitcoin was on a nice little move today. So we'll pull up Bitcoin real quick and see what's going on there. Bookie Monster said, I think specifically in iRobot, which doesn't make it any better. I don't even let's take a look at that real quick, just for fun. What is this? I think I remember what the iRobot guy is, but this should make it even more ridiculous. Oh my! It's so funny. I type in iRobot and it's like all the vacuums. That's so funny. You know what's even better about this? Here we go. Hold on. Let me share my screen real quick. You know what's even better about this? Hold up. What makes this all much better is that the main character is Will Smith. That makes it even better that it is starring Will Smith. Oh man. I guess you could say that he has a metallically white skin. I guess this is one of the whiter robots I have seen. But this is why we're so lucky to have Congress all over this, because this is the kind of stuff in America right now, as many of you probably fully understand, that absolutely needs to get cleaned up. So we're on it. Don't worry. That's what our representatives are focused on. We should be getting economic data soon. DFIN, I think we said jobs, right? Let me flip over to this real quick and make sure we're not missing anything.
But I really don't have any investments in it.
All right. We can get the data on time. We were going to even blow that off for you, but we're going to go to Rick Sant. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
Thank you, David Tepper. That was awesome.
In studio.
Great. Thank
Rick
you so much.
Santelli, what do you got? Economic data.
All right, what do I have? I have a lot of numbers to throw out here. Let's start out with GDP, third time around the block on second quarter, and we still see some movement, which is pretty interesting. From 2.9% expected, we get 3%. That's the same as it was in the rearview mirror, and that's the best since the last quarter of last year when it was 3.4. We did see consumption drop a 10 from 2.9 to 2.8, and if we look at the price index, it remained at 2.5. 2.5 is the lowest on that price index since the last quarter of last year when it was 1.6. So it has been significantly lower. And finally, if we look at the PCE core, and this is a quarter over quarter, it remained at 2.8, also the lightest since the, that is the biggest since the last quarter of last year when it was 2.0, 2%. Now let's shift gears a bit. Let's go to initial and continuing claims. Everybody, of course, is waiting for those. Initial claims, 218,000. It just remains so well behaved. And that's from a slightly revised 222,000. 218, and if you look at the 218 number and take the 219, which was the smallest going back to mid-May, that now becomes your comp on 218, also remains at mid-May. Just to throw this out there, last time we were above 250,000 was August of 23. August of 23, and I pull that number out because it's a psychological area we like to pay attention to. And this is the 16th consecutive week above 1.8 million on continuing claims, 1,834,000. Now, durable goods, and of course, we all know that durable goods is very volatile. These are August preliminary reads. In a couple weeks, they will change. The headline number, expected to be a big minus, maybe down as much as 3%, comes in unchanged. Now, this is interesting. It's unchanged. And last month, our final read moved from 9.8 to 9.9. That's a big number, 9.9. And it remains the strongest level going all the way back to July of 2020. And I do want to point out, if you look at the June number, it was minus 6.9. And that was the weakest since April of 2020. So many of us just looked at this as kind of a kickback. but the fact that it even was revised higher and this number remained unchanged is very significant. Now, if we look at X transportation, up 0.5%. So we could see that the transportation aspects of this made a positive difference, being up 0.5%. That's actually the healthiest number of the year. You have to go to the last month of last year when it was up 0.6. And if we look at the capital goods orders, non-defense Axelar, that comes in right now at 0.2%. If we look at shipments, that's 0.1%. Both those numbers are very near expectations. And we see that the strength there and the continuing claims and initial claims being as expected, initial claims remaining low, has pushed yields up a bit. So we see 10-year yields now at 3.79. That's virtually unchanged. We see 2-year note yields at 3.57. They were at 3.53. So we have seen some takeoff on yields on this group of data points, stronger on the durable goods and well-behaved in terms of initial claims. Becky, I know it's a lot of numbers, but the market synthesized it pretty accurately, in my opinion. Back to you.
And so did you, Rick. We always appreciate it. He's the maestro. Thank you. We'll see you later, Rick. When we come back, investor Mark Cuban is going to be joining us to talk markets and the election. We'll be back after a quick break.
All right, so a lot of numbers got thrown out there. Most of the numbers were in line. Economy stronger than expected. DFIN, absolutely. Durable goods data 0%, which is better than expected. Jobless lower than expected. Yeah, most of the things came in a stronger economy than expected, which is good to see. Just taking a look at Bitcoin real quick, really not much of a move. So if we take a look at Bitcoin real quick, we can see that Bitcoin is kind of just holding steady. Taylor's saying right now, if Bitcoin gets above 66, we could really start going. And I'll show you what Taylor's looking at right now. This is something I'd been watching as well. We have some kind of resistance coming in here. Hard to know what the actual level is, but there's somewhere in here that Bitcoin is clearly continually getting rejected off. So 66 would put us somewhere in here we're trying to clear. I don't think it's an actual level, and I think most of you guys following this channel by now know I'm not a big believer that there's like an actual magic number, right? We break that number and we're good. But we really need to push up through and break out of this general range. And I think if I guess I would put a little more at 70-ish. That's when I'd start feeling really good that Bitcoin is pulling out of there. This is one of the things we've talked about a bit ago. If we do see a scenario in which Bitcoin kind of breaks out here, and then we have a pullback to retest, that might be the moment that we do see some significant momentum on XRP. For that to really play out, we'd want Bitcoin to make this break probably in the next 14 days. Like, I would love to see Bitcoin do this prior to that October 7th date coming. Yesterday was a big day. We got all the way through yesterday with no appeal in the Ripple SEC case either. One of the things I mentioned that I was afraid of was the SEC coming out immediately after that hearing and appealing. That was one of the biggest worries I had. It looks like we've kind of avoided that. 565 people in here so far, guys. Make sure to keep smashing the like button. Exit out of the live chat real quick. Takes 2 seconds. Just hit the X. You'll be able to go down to the bottom of the screen. Just hit that thumbs up button. We'll get those numbers ripping real quick. And if you're over on X, just drop a retweet. Looks like we have a news alert. Let me just see what this is.
An exchange that she had with MSNBC's Stephanie Rule about tariffs.
Tariffs aren't unique to President Trump. President Biden has tariffs in place. He's actually looking to potentially implement more. Where do you come out on? Is there a good tariff, a bad tariff?
Well, part of it is you don't just throw around the idea of just tariffs across the board. And that's part of the problem with Donald Trump. Frankly, I'm going to, and I say this in all sincerity, he's just not very serious about how he thinks about some of these issues. And one must be serious. and have a plan and a real plan that's not just about some talking point ending in an exclamation at a political rally, but actually putting the thought into what will be the return on the investment and what will be the economic impact on everyday people.
We've got a lot of ground to cover with our next guest. I want to bring in Mark Cuban for his takeaways. Mark is a billionaire investor, of course, entrepreneur, is also a supporter of Vice President Harris. So we know where you stand. I'm curious, listening to her there, and you called in a couple weeks ago to talk about what you thought she would be telling the public. And we quizzed you. We went back a little back and forth about just how much you knew versus what the public knew. How much more do you think the public knows now? And how much more do you think the public should know?
Well, I think obviously they know more. She's talking more. She's giving speeches. She was very clear about tariffs right there. And she's got 40 days to communicate other things. Remember, think of this as a business and she's the CEO. She went from lack of favorability, lack of awareness, and way behind Donald Trump, right? To here we are 50 days later from where she started. She's at worst tied, right? People on her economic policy, she was behind Trump 25%. Now she's behind 11%. So she's making progress. And if she just continues along that trend, the trend is her friend, it means she's doing the right things. And so she'll keep on communicating new ideas, new elements. She was a lot more specific on tariffs and where she stands. The difference between her and Donald Trump, to her point, Donald Trump will say what fits to the audience. When I talk to her team about different things, whether it's healthcare, whether it's tariffs, whatever it may be, she goes back and her team does a full analysis. She doesn't just say yes or no. They really dig in to what she said. What's the impact?
But there is a critique that actually she will say whatever the audience wants, right? I mean, we look at the tipping, the tipping thing that took place in Nevada. Given some of the details that we don't have on certain things, is that because some of those details would be less favorable in certain audiences?
Do you see the Elon quote? I don't know what you think of Elon, but
I like Elon.
I like Elon too. But she was at 28% favorability,
right?
And then, as you say, things change. She's all the way up to about 50%. I would just argue that filling in the blanks does not account for that move, and that the media coverage has been so positive and almost, Mark, that it's like, we don't have to worry about trying to elect.
He doesn't like Elon at all.
Not up for another 4 years. And it's not Donald Trump. So they would have, the left and the people that need a candidate would have embraced anyone at that point. And ABC, it was 100% positive coverage of her, 92% negative of Trump. So Elon says,
So
what changed the media coverage?
Okay, first, what's the most watched news channel? Who are the most watched and viewed and listened to podcasts? Who are the most watched and listened to?
Is it Fox?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I mean, it's not close, right? The number one shows are all Fox. The number one podcast,
So
lean right.
Even in spite of that, she's been able to.
Not in spite of that, meaning, well, in spite of that, yeah.
Okay.
Meaning the mainstream media is not who you think it is. The mainstream media truly leans right.
Maybe that's why it's only tied then.
Well, maybe, right?
I don't know.
Where do you think she really is in terms of what this election is, in terms of the polls and the betting? Do you look more at betting sites?
No,
what do you look at?
Like, I'm an investor in Polymarket, right?
Okay.
Through a fund, and U.S. citizens can't bet on there, right? So it's kind of a meaningless number. Now, predicted, I haven't really followed, so I don't know.
Right. I was, we've disagreed on things. We go back and forth sometimes on Twitter. I just think I don't know whether it's good or bad that there are half the people that under no circumstances, no matter what, would ever vote for Donald Trump.
Can you imagine why?
On the other half, this is where I'm getting.
Okay.
On the other half, there are half the people that under no circumstances can look at what her comments have been in the past. And
Mark Cuban looks weird right now.
For whatever, just having gone back to, with me, the Dukakis days, the McGovern days, there's just no way that, and I'm not speaking for what I would do now, but there are people who think it's so patently far left and progressive, they would never, under any circumstances, vote for Kamala Harris. And here we are.
Right.
And have you convinced anyone to change?
Yeah, of course.
You've convinced people to change?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Oh, I can't convince
Right, because
anyone.
here's what I say, right? Here's what I think is happening. She's learned, all of politics has learned from Donald Trump over the last 10 years. The way politics were done pre-2016 versus now is night and day difference. Not so much in the Democratic Party up until Kamala Harris. She learned what he did. He took over the Republican Party. The way the Republicans were in 2015 is nothing like they are in 2024. Now the Republican Party has basically become the family business. Kamala Harris has learned from that. She's basically taken over the Democratic Party.
That does not sound like a good thing, Mark.
May or may not be, right? But it's a reality, right? In order to win, she said yesterday, she's not an ideologue. She's open to all ideas from everybody, from business, whoever. That's important. That's the difference. And when you listen to her talk, we talked about Donald Trump. Her team really does vet, even if it's no tax on tips.
It does look like he's wearing eyeliner. That's it.
But when Bernie Sanders said she'll say anything, did the rest of the Democratic Party just go, "You idiots, shut up today. What are you doing?" Because he said she'll move to the Senate, but she still holds dear all the things he holds dear.
Have you seen her talk to or about or with Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders?
That could be calculated too, Mark.
It could be calculated. That's right. It wouldn't be a bad move. But
it'd be a great move.
I truly believe she's gone.
What do you think of the fact that
really?
Yeah, because the country, she believes and knows that the country needs to come together.
What do you think of the fact that neither of these candidates talk about the debt or deficit ever?
No, that's
that it is the great giveaway on. And the question is, who's giving away more?
Yeah, yes, no.
There's a competition going on.
She's raising taxes, right? She was very straightforward.
Right.
Corporate income tax 28%, which is still cheaper than a tariff plus 20%.
Well, wouldn't you personally rather stay at 21?
It doesn't affect me one way or the other.
Not you,
for my businesses,
for everybody else,
for the country,
for everybody else.
Well, no, you have to look at the deficit, and the revenue has.
That's not where we should go for it.
What's that?
I don't think that's
where we should go for it then.
I'd go taxing his loans that he takes on his billions.
Yeah, but you know what? And I don't do that, right?
No, I know, but the people that
I know what you're saying.
able to.
When interest rates were near zero net effective rate, right? Everybody did that because if you can't make more than 1% on your return, it was easy to, right? Now with interest rates of 4 or 5%, it makes no sense. So you can do that, and she's not opposed to it, but it's not going to generate as much money. I think there's a lot more revenue available from taxes on stock buybacks. And because taxes on stock buybacks, think about where the cash structure is in a company. If you have something to invest in R&D or whatever, you do it, right? If you have a company to buy or people to hire, whatever, you do it. If you can't find a better way to invest your capital, you buy back shares. So it's really saying, okay, let's tax the buybacks, and that'll create a ton of revenue to reduce the deficit.
It'll either create a ton of revenue or it will change business behavior. Lee Cooperman was on yesterday saying that, look, we saw the good stock buybacks. Then with prices at high levels, you saw a lot of bad ones too. He pointed out how much
there's always bad ones, right?
Bought back at high levels. But if it does that, if it changes corporate behavior, you're not going to have the revenue you would have assumed.
And that's fine too. That means they're investing it or they're paying dividends, right? So think about that. If it pushes them towards dividends, and I also suggested to them, and I don't know if they'll do it, is rather than for a family of four, I think if you have income under $89,000, then your dividends are tax-free, right? So you bump up that amount to $250,000 or $400,000, because if a higher tax rate on stock buybacks pushes to dividends, then it's actually tax-free money that goes into the economy. Remember when Microsoft did that special dividend of billions of dollars 20 years ago? That actually impacted GDP. So having big companies put money back in the dividends, and now investors truly buying because they get a return instead of just hoping the market goes up, that's not a bad thing either.
How do you feel about industrial policy? One of the things she did talk about was investing in a number of different industries in a big way.
In a big way.
Over the next 10 years.
Yeah, contrast.
There are some people who say, we shouldn't have industrial policy like this, and we've tried this before, and it's been a mistake. And other people who say we need to.
I want to see if he talks about crypto. That's why I'm sitting on it for a minute.
Our place in the world depends on our ability to invest in AI. Period. End of story. Whoever wins AI has the best military. There's no question about it. And private companies, while they obviously invest a lot, the Department of Defense obviously invests a lot. We need to do more. We cannot lose that battle, or we lose everything. That defines our currency. It defines how we compete in the world. It defines our military. So investing that is critical.
There was a piece out just recently about that there has not been a manufacturing boom, that there was post-pandemic for a year, but it's been bad. It's been bad for the past 2 years. The ISM, the index, has been contracting since 2022, right when the IRA was passed. So there's been no
Yeah, but okay, look, there's 500.
But are you sure that they? I mean, this was my fear. Solyndra, that's my fear.
Yeah, picking winners and losers. Yeah,
exactly. Intel, we decide now. Intel can't get out.
But now TSMC is making what, 5 millimeter, 3 nano, whatever it is, chips already, and that's needed. That's critical, right? That's critical for U.S. security. But to your point, right? What is it? 75% of manufacturers have under 20 employees, right? There's like 4,000 companies that have more than 5 manufacturing companies. Donald Trump is trying to come in with a hammer and say, you're the nail. I'm going to hit you with a 200% tariff, John Deere. Kamala Harris is saying, I'm going to give you incentives to manufacture more. Which do you think is going to work better with companies? Do you want to be underneath a hammer? Because when you put a 200% tariff on John Deere and only a 10 or 20% tariff on their Chinese competitors, their Chinese competitors are now less expensive than John Deere. And it's not so easy. We saw what happened with Carrier, right? When in 2016, they said, if you move down, we're going to tax you more, 35% tariff back then. And what Carrier did, they gamed the system. Right? They just fired different employees.
Do you think any of the 40-year highs in inflation are attributable to price gouging? And do you care that is the entire premise on?
No, you're misrepresenting what she's saying, Joe.
I'm watching her ads now.
Okay, so then let's.
You've seen the ads.
Yeah, of course. Right.
I'm going to bring down
during a crisis.
Okay.
During a crisis.
What do you think caused the 40-year? Do you think supermarket gouging had anything to do with?
No.
You think it was putting too much stimulus on top of a supply constrained?
Biden and
then it just looks to me like they're not being truthful with this, and they're trying to deflect blame.
No, but it's
to corporations
right?
because of their record.
It's still important. There's going to be another hurricane. There's going to be another tornado. There's going to be another natural disaster. And there's 37 states that have laws.
But the free market comes in and
no, it doesn't though, Joe.
It does eventually. It does eventually.
But eventually, meanwhile, 37 states have the same type of law. Right.
And what happened? By the way, how do you feel about the credit cards?
You mean
Mr. Socialist Donald Trump?
Trump wants to limit the credit card controls.
There's
only one candidate that's brought up price controls, and that's Donald Trump.
No, and even when we talk about what the tariffs are going to do, in one
I'm becoming unoptimistic on hearing anything about crypto here.
1.9% inflation. We know exactly. That's where it was. That's where it was. The other thing, Mark, I still think immigration and illegal immigration is a huge drain on a lot of the jobs that we've added. There's been no net gain among natural born. I'm not saying I don't want immigration. We all love immigration. It's made this. We're all immigrants. We're all descended from immigrants. But I don't think you can have an open southern border.
No, I agree. And she agrees too. She said the exact same thing.
She had a chance.
Yeah, but
you have the issue.
There's a lot of COOs that when the CEO leaves for whatever reason, come in, take over, and have completely different policies and approaches, right? That's just the way it works. When you're second in command, you do what your boss tells you to do. He delegates authority to you.
But the border was supposed to be her.
Yeah, but it's still the same thing. It's his policies. What he said to her was, you go down and you use diplomacy to try to improve, to try to reduce the flow, the migration of people across the border, right? And when they finally came around, and it took too long, I agree, but when they finally got there, now look at the results. It didn't take a wall, but yet the crossing numbers are where Trump's were when pre-pandemic, at the same number. So it worked. So what she did actually worked, right? And look, let me just add one more thing, because we'll go into Haiti and all that kind of stuff. When did the civil wars in Haiti start?
When did we go to Haiti?
We'll talk about
all right, they're talking about Haiti now. I don't think we're getting any crypto. Not a bad discussion, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of Cuban myself. I've never been a fan of Cuban. Someone has dirt on him to be supporting Harris to this degree. Not a horrible discussion there. I was hoping they would talk about the SEC chair thing. They would talk about crypto a little bit, but Cuban seems like he's just all in on the Democratic Party at this point. So he's just wait, got Kensler here.
60 Minutes on Sunday. And there were some interesting things that were said. There were some examples where she brought prices down, especially in healthcare, which is your world.
Right.
Some of that seemed egregious, but on the same time, there's a whole bunch of CEOs and big businesses that think that they're being unfairly attacked in deals that should be done that can't be done. What do you think Harris does? And that's something she has not addressed yet.
Well, she's been very clear about the fact that she's against regulation via litigation. She said it. She's had me say it for them, right?
And is that a veiled way of saying that Gary Gensler is legislating through through lawsuits?
I don't think it's very veiled at all. You know, I think it is what it is. Now, in terms of Lena, I think she's done some things right and wrong. I think her efforts in the pharmacy space have been right on. She's done a good job. Her efforts to try to break up some of these mergers, I don't agree with.
And not just what I'm not asking whether you agree with it.
Right, I don't know what she's going to do. Right?
And that's a big question for the world of.
No, I get personnel is policy. I get that, right? But we haven't heard anything from Donald Trump either. You know, all we've seen Donald Trump do is hire his relatives, right? RNC, here comes the daughter-in-law. You know, who's going to speak for him? His two sons want to come up with a new Hey, we got a new silver coin. Here come the sons. Hey, we got blockchain. We've got DeFi. Here comes another son. You haven't seen him work with. I mean, again, the family business is now the Republican Party.
But Mark, you're asking a lot of people to make a big leap of faith on. For example, I've got like 15 things. You've seen them. They're in ads for.
Bring them on, yeah.
Well, you know, mandatory gun buyback, or abolishing the filibuster, or banning offshore drilling, or no more private insurance companies.
No,
decriminalizing illegal. So don't believe she'll do any of those things. And then the things you don't like that happened under the Biden administration, you say she didn't have any control over because she wasn't CEO. So don't take responsibility for those things that she did.
This is a good
How about
point.
all the hotspots around the world?
So here's the difference. Another difference between Kamala and Donald, right? Donald says something, and everybody else tries to explain what he really meant. Right? He didn't really mean all these things. This is what he's suggesting, right? He's just hyperbole. Listen to what Kamala Harris says. What she says is what she's going to do.
But then you're not going to go back and look at Trump's 4 years compared to the last 4 years that we've had.
But what about the years before that?
We know what he did, and we know there were no hotspots around the world.
Then you're not talking about inheriting the Obama economy or what he did there. Look, Obama was the deporter in chief. He deported more people. What is specifically, Joe, my turn.
Yeah.
What specifically is he going to do for deportation? Is he going to get the
I don't know how he's going to.
You don't think that's important?
No, I just think that when she was unable to answer the question about are you better off now than 4 years ago, I think that was illustrative.
Well, 4 years ago, literally, we're in a pandemic. It was an easy answer.
We can look at exactly what happened. He's already been president, and we can look at what happened when she was vice president. And it's not good. The comparison.
Being the president, Joe, as you know, is different than being vice president. It's not close, right?
So she can take credit for the good things that happened with Biden, but she didn't have anything to do with the bad
Donald
things.
Trump takes credit for things that didn't even exist, right? The things that didn't even happen. He forgets that we had to pay tens of billions of dollars to farmers because his tariffs backfired. He forgets about all the
tariffs that are still on.
Well, no, we're talking about farmers' tariffs, right? We're not talking about steel. Today, what did they talk about? They talked about eliminating EV because it's a security threat. That's smart.
They just said 1 minute. We need a bell, right at the end of the 1 minute. Back to your corner.
We had John Paulson on the broadcast a couple days ago, earlier this week, and at the end, I made a reference to January 6th and to Mike Pence, and he said,
"Oh God!"
Not that he didn't want to talk about it. He just sort of brushed it aside as a separate matter. And the question is, here we are talking about policy, right? We're having real policy conversation.
The underpinning is the guy.
But my question is how much do you think as CEOs who are watching this program, or just a voter, is supposed to think about these other issues?
Look,
I think that Joe would say that January 6th is not.
It's been litigated. People know it happened. It's been litigated.
But how
the 48% that back him are.
The guy literally told his vice president. He called him. You know what he called him, right? He literally tried to get him to overturn an election. That should disqualify him. It just, for whatever reason, people don't want.
In the heat of that moment, at that point, I think he really did believe that it had been stolen. At that point, I don't know if he believes it anymore.
Look, I remember going to.
But you know that in the past, there have been Democrats that have voted not to certify.
Yeah, that's fine. Right? That's fine. But none of them called their vice president a pussy.
That's a great comment. Mark Cuban is talking about policies because
he's the only one to do that.
Kamala can't.
As I said,
absolutely.
Stormy Daniels. There's a lot of things.
I don't care about his character, right? I don't care about what he does in his personal life. I could care less. But you have to live up to your oath of office as president of the United States. You cannot trust that Donald Trump would do that. You talk about history. He has ripped off more hardworking Americans than probably anybody else. Michael, down the street, right? When Michael Cohen said he was instructed to short pay and that was a good thing, at the end of the day, when Donald Trump stood up there talking about what was going on and everything, he didn't say, no, that's not true. He was smiling in the court. Literally, he was okay. Do you know any CEO who would be okay with short paying a vendor and think that's a good thing? Would you support any CEO like
Mark
that?
Cuban, it's a longer conversation. You got to come on back to the table.
will.
I beg you to come on back so we.
Wow. All right. That was quite the discussion. I did run a poll halfway through that. And I know some people don't like listening to the mainstream talking heads, but I do think that is an interesting discussion. I don't like Mark Cuban. I'm not a huge fan of everyone on CNBC, but I mean, I do think the discussion is interesting. I think Mark Cuban is definitely becoming a talking head for the party. Someone had a great comment. I believe it's Galicio. He said, Mark Cuban's talking policies because Kamala can't. I think that's probably a pretty accurate representation of what we're seeing. I did see that I put a vote out there. I put a vote out there and I asked you guys, who would you rather have as SEC chair, Gensler or Cuban? The vote went how I thought it would, actually based off how much some of you apparently hate Mark Cuban, which I'm not a fan of Mark Cuban myself. I actually thought Gary Gensler might get more votes than he did. I know a couple of people are saying they did in fact vote for Gary Gensler here. I think Mark Cuban would be an exponentially better SEC chair than Gary Gensler. I think Mark Cuban would actually be a good SEC chair because he'd be held in line. Mark Cuban is definitely an arrogant asshole. I don't think anyone can disagree about that. But if he was just SEC chair, I actually think he'd do a pretty good job. He's pro crypto. He's pro innovation. You heard him right there. He said SEC chair Gary Gensler has done a terrible job. He said Lena Khan's done a terrible job. So Mark Cuban clearly has some weird hatred for Trump, like a lot of other billionaires. But I do think he would. I do think he'd do a much better job than Gary Gensler. Yeah, I don't think Cuban did a very good job of convincing anyone that Kamala's failed policies over the past 4 years are somehow going to be different in the next 4 years. But see, she would have to clean house. She would have to clean house, and she won't. Cuban loved Trump in 2015. Yeah, you could just tell, because here's the thing with these billionaires and millionaires. They want someone to kiss up to them. They want someone to follow them around, kiss up to them, do everything they want. And if Trump's not willing to do that, they're going to turn on him instantly. They're going to be like, I want this other person who's going to do that for me. So Mark Cuban wants to be in the background calling all the shots without actually having to be president. He's talked about running for president multiple times. I guarantee you he went to Trump and said he wanted to do some of these things. They essentially turned against him because he didn't like some of the way Trump was handling certain things. Yeah, him and Mooch are crazy. It does seem like someone has dirt on them, or the opposite. I actually do think it could be a bit of just that they feel like Trump is better, thinks he's better than them, and like that just drives them crazy. Like Mooch was literally in Trump's cabinet and then got kicked out and then has now been on a vendetta against him. So you can tell these two just took something personally. I would agree, Taco Pro. I think Mark Cuban, I think he does care about people. I think he does. I don't like the guy. I don't like him, but I also don't think he's Gary Gensler. I think he would be. I think someone asked me earlier, do you think he'd be fair to crypto companies? Mark Cuban? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Mark Cuban would do a great job at the SEC. And I think Mark Cuban would do a better job than Jay Clayton did, right? So massive ego. Yeah, he's got his faults. Don't get me wrong, guys. I'm not a Mark Cuban fan, but I mean, here, let's do a new poll. I'm curious because let's face it. Let's face it. And I think it's important we're honest with ourselves. Let's do, this is going to be a good one. Not Q&A. We want to do a poll. This should be a good poll. Fun. I'm curious what people think about this one because I think the last one is easy. Let's do Cuban. Mark Cuban, or does anyone know what it is? Anyone know what it is? Brian Brooks, that's too easy. Brian Brooks any day. I would rather do, that's a good one. I would rather do Cuban. I mean, I'd rather do Brian Brooks than pretty much anyone. Brian Brooks is a hero. Brian Brooks is a hero. Okay. New poll just dropped. This is going to be an interesting one. This is going to be an interesting one. No doubt. But Cuban doesn't like that Trump's ego is bigger than, yeah, there's something, they're just clash as humans. I think if you got Trump and Cuban into the room, they would agree on like 99% of their, on 99% of things. It's a weird dynamic. I think they do agree on more. I just think Cuban has obviously got his feelings hurt somewhere down the road. I never liked Cuban on Shark Tank either. He was always a bit of a, I'm not going to say the word. Is this poll not showing up for you guys? I have a poll up. It doesn't look like anyone's interacting with it yet. Do we not see the poll? Do we not see the poll? Let me restart the poll. Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened with that poll. Something weird happened as soon as I posted it. CC chair. Cuban. This one I think will be interesting. All right, let's hope this one hits. The last one didn't work. Big no, Cuban. Cuban was definitely wearing eyeliner or something. He was definitely, there was something odd about his appearance there. You can tell he thinks it's his role to be like the policy guy. The policy guy. I'm going to pull up an interesting chart while we're waiting, guys. A project that I'm pretty excited about. Well, alpha here. You guys know I never talk about really. I never talk about projects that I'm excited about, but this is one I'm liking a lot. Pull this up real quick for you guys. This project's gonna be Axelar. Axelar is one that I'm a big fan of. As you can see, we kind of have the potential where we're creating this bottom here. If this thing can hold and we can reverse out of here, very solid, very solid. Very solid. So big fan of what Axelar is doing. I think they have a very low risk bridging protocol that I think could be very important to the entire industry. They obviously have those great Ripple connections. I would love to see Axelar break above here. I would love to see Axelar be able to break above this level, hold support, and then possibly make a move. But it looks like they do have an announcement coming up. Just wanted to bring it to your guys' attention. It's a project with fundamentals I like a lot. It seems like they have a lot of good connections. Still relatively small and early. So just wanted to throw this at you guys so you guys know kind of what's going on here. Cross-chain interoperability is going to be very important, and I like what Axelar is doing. In a way, it's kind of competition for Flare, but at the same time, this is a huge market. So there's going to be plenty of room for both to win, and there'll probably be interoperability between Axelar and Flare at some point. So just wanted to throw that bone at you guys quickly. I don't want to make this entire thing about it, but let's see the poll. Okay, wow. Wow, actually, Cuban is doing better against Jay Clayton than Gary Gensler. I actually thought it would be the opposite. People actually prefer Gary Gensler over Clayton, which is shocking. I thought it'd be the other way around. If I had to pick, I'd pick Clayton any day. Clayton obviously had something wrong with Ripple, but he sort of was pro crypto in his weird, corrupt kind of way. Gary Gensler is just straight up anti crypto for everyone. So, little surprised on that one, but that's kind of what I like doing these polls. You get some interesting Cuban and Vance both where JD Vance might wear eyeliner too. He's another one. He's another one who you kind of look at him and you're like, is there something on your eyes? Brian Brooks would be the holy grail. If we could get Brian Brooks in there, we would be in a very fun place. I think Cuban would do an excellent job as well. I really do. I don't like Cuban. I've said that multiple times on here, but I feel like I have to make that clear because of the obvious hate for Cuban in this chat. I'm not a fan of Cuban, but I think he would do a good job at the SEC. Not as president. Not in a position of too much power, but just enough power for him to be pro-innovation. Any person who has built a business before should be head of the SEC. Like, the problem is we put these people at the head of the SEC who have never built the business. So they just push these crazy things forward that are so impractical to business, so impractical to raising money, so impractical to running an efficient market because they have no idea what any of these things are. They read a textbook. So like, that's why I think Cuban would actually be great at the SEC. Would he do weird things with like social policy and like have these weird requirements on the environmental stuff? I think we'd have to deal with that. But would he make it so cryptocurrency companies couldn't operate in the United States? Absolutely not. He would clean that issue up. So in terms of him versus someone who's just going to be getting paid in the back to push or shut down a technology, I'd rather take that. If you've never signed the front of a payroll check, you have no business being POTUS. Completely agree. Musk or Deaton as head of the SEC? Musk or Deaton as head of the SEC? I mean, that would just be that's easy Deaton. I think so. Musk wouldn't really be a good SEC guy. That's way too low for him. But even as president, like, I honestly think president of the United States would be too low for Musk. I don't think Musk would be that good at it. Like, Musk isn't a great communicator. Elon Musk, Trump's role for Elon Musk was perfect. Government efficiency. Elon Musk would walk in there, clean house, fire half the people there, and then say, okay, why is everything working the same? It's because none of these people were required. That is where Musk would be very good. I don't think Musk would really be that good as a president or as a head of the SEC. I think you need to do things with Musk that he thinks are important, and then he'll do a good job. I think if Musk was head of the SEC, like, he wouldn't care enough to get anything actually done. It's below him. For John Deaton, it would be incredible. John Deaton would do a fantastic job. I think the first thing John Deaton would do is fix a lot of those accreditation laws. So I would love to see John Deaton fill that role. But I also don't think John Deaton's really the right person for that job. John Deaton would be a great senator. The SEC is a little too specific. You really need someone who has business experience and a lot of regulatory experience, and you really need to kind of have a very unique look at the principle of markets. Not to say John Deaton couldn't have that. I just don't know if John Deaton, if that's his real role. John Deaton's a great person that's like public facing, right? John Deaton is someone you want to hear talk, give speeches. You don't really want John Deaton in a back room. I think Brian Brooks would be incredible there. Hester Peirce, I think, would be good. My only issue with Hester Peirce is sometimes I think she's a little too theoretical, right? Like, I remember Hester Peirce wanted to create like a new government agency for cryptocurrency. Sometimes I think she overthinks things a little bit. Like, we have the CFTC, we have the SEC. Just make use of them, make them work. Like, here's the thing that no one really talks about. Like, Call crypto a security, whatever. Who cares? But clearly there has to be changes, right? So if I sat here and said, okay, every cryptocurrency is a security, great. Now, what does that mean? Because that doesn't work for a cryptocurrency, right? Like securities have 2-day settlement times. Cryptocurrencies settle in 3 seconds. So if I'm going to come out and say, okay, this is all securities, fine, but make rules so they still function. The problem we have right now is they don't function as security. So the actual label is just a human construct. Like the word security, the word commodity is just a human construct. And not everything is going to fit perfectly into each one of those categories. So the point is fit it into the category in the appropriate way, make it work. And that's what hasn't been done. It's easier to call something a commodity because there's not these weird restrictions. A commodity is just a thing. A security typically wraps up some contract. There's some obligation. It's a little more theoretical, I believe, than a commodity. So to call a cryptocurrency a security breaks some things, but you could make it work. Like if you had someone willing to do the work, you could make it work. There wouldn't be an issue. The problem is essentially, Gensler just stated BTC is not a security 3 minutes ago. Sorry. Did I miss something? Let me just double check this real quick, because if there was any news on this morning's show with Gary Gensler, I didn't see it, but I want to make sure I have you guys covered. Let me check on this real quick. I'll stop ranting. Yeah, but from my understanding, Roger, I completely agree. From my understanding, I hear that oh, interesting. This was in the back room of CNBC earlier today.
And of course, AI is a great driver.
Look at that.
We achieved a record data center.
Sorry, I forgot to mute my CNBC. This is about the time of the day CNBC gets boring, so let me mute that up. Yeah, so Cuban Gary Gensler. I saw Ellie say there was fallout among the commissioners with Uenda's comments about how he's been there for 20 years and Gensler has been the worst. Oh, geez. Yeah, that's a slap in the face. Christina yeah, I don't think Giancarlo is going to be in the running, but he would be great to see. Yeah, I don't know if I like Mark Cuban posing with Gary Gensler. I mean, ugh, a little gross. SEC chair says Bitcoin's not a security. Yeah, maybe he did mention that. Oh, this should be good. I think you guys will like this. Let's see how this shakes out. Hold on. Boom.
Prices are still high.
Yeah, I agree with you.
You said you want to take this on by going after those who engage in price gouging.
Yeah.
But as somebody who supports free markets, who's a capitalist, how do you go after price gouging without implementing price controls? Because once we get in this zone, people start to get worried and they say, I don't know what she stands for.
So just to be very frank, I am never going to apologize for going after companies and corporations that take advantage of the desperation of the American people. And as Attorney General, I saw this happen. In the midst of an emergency, whether it be an extreme weather event or even the pandemic, we saw it, where those few companies, not the majority, not most, but those few companies that would take advantage of the desperation of people and jack up prices. Yeah, I'm going to go after them. Yes, I'm going to go after them. And that is part of a much more comprehensive plan on what we can do to bring down the cost of living, including housing, including the everyday needs of the American people.
Did she ever actually say anything? Thanks. Okay. Yeah, that's concerning. Checking out the news real quick. What time do we got? What do we have? 13 minutes till market open. She never actually says anything. Word salad. See, it's actually the opposite of how Trump talks. Trump will say something, and sometimes I'll be sitting there and being like, wait, what did Trump actually say? And then you think about it and you're like, oh, this is what he meant. This makes sense because Trump like breaks up a lot of the things he's saying. He's like, he's a little all over the place. So he'll like say one thing and then make a comment about another thing and then come back to the original thing. And it's not a word salad. It actually makes sense when you think about it. Kamala Harris is the opposite. She like goes into these like long tangents explaining these things, and you're sitting there thinking, you're like, wait, that never actually, nothing was actually said there. It was like a full loop. You're like back to the question. You're like, wait, we're back at square one. It's impossible to speak so much and say absolutely nothing. Oh, great comment, Taylor. That's what it feels like. Looks like some things are happening on RLUSD in the background. Oh, I wanted to give a quick shout out to this. I didn't see XP Market in the chat today. But I wanted to give a quick shout out. It looks like they're going to be doing some kind of yield farming with the XPM token. So keep an eye on this. This is still a much smaller token in comparison to a lot of the tokens out there. Talked about Axelar a little bit earlier today, but could be an interesting opportunity. And obviously, I've been very impressed with the XP Market team so far. So always happy to give them a little free shout out and just let you guys know about some of the things they're doing. A lot of cool ways to go earn that XPM token for free, too. They're trying to encourage more people to use the blockchain. So if you are looking to kind of learn about the platform, do some free tasks, and have some free time, want to get some free crypto, great way to do it. I like what they're doing there. Guys, make sure to take a quick second, exit out of the live chat. We'll take 2 seconds, and then drop a like on the stream. Going to be absolutely monumental in making sure more people see this content. And you guys know the goal is just to onboard more people into this community. So really appreciate everyone doing that. Checking out the news real quick, just making sure we don't miss anything. Oh, we got the clip of Gensler saying Bitcoin's not a security. Let's throw this up because I missed this part of the discussion, so I would like to see it. Let's hot swap. Oh, look at Ugh. Oh God. Oh, maybe we shouldn't do this. Oh, jeez. Oh man. All right. Let's do it.
But there's some argument to be made that you want this, that actually it would be better if all of this business was happening in the U.S. You talk about an SBF. Obviously, that was taking place in the Bahamas. And, you know, a lot of people were trying to do things in other places. If there was a real regime here that everybody could trust and we had established rules and there weren't these questions about whether you were going to go over the line or you're behind where the line was, would that be better?
I think that we do have those rules.
So you think those lines exist? Then why do people in the industry say that they don't know what the rules are?
Look, not liking the rules is not the same as that there aren't rules. And I think there's a lot that have profited off of the public's interest in this field, but profited without the proper disclosures. And inherently, there's business models that have a lot of conflicts. And we've seen the results of that time in and time again.
See, this is why I need to debate Gary Gensler. I would literally be like, the wrong question is not why people in the industry don't think the rules are clear. The right question is, why are the courts telling you are wrong? Like, it's so simple. The rules are not clear to one person, and that's the SEC. Well, we absolutely know that the courts are pushing back on these rules. So it's so funny to me that he's like, oh, well, it's the fact that the industry says the rules aren't clear. It's like, no, you're losing. You're losing. Like, in court, the courts are telling you are wrong. Insane. Like, put me as the person on the other side of this. Will be a very different discussion. He's a slimy little worm, but not entirely better. You need better reporting, man. It's not hard to drill in. Very, very simple.
outside of crypto and inside of crypto. We see what happens when there's so inherent conflict. So we've got 90 years of experience with this, Andrew. It works reasonably well. We've got the deepest, most liquid capital markets. We're trying to make them more efficient. What we're doing in the equity markets,
I think
what we're
you're
doing in
warming
the
up
treasury
to
markets.
top tier crypto. That's my take.
What's that?
I think you're warming up to top tier crypto. I don't think you think it's a monolith. I think you think there might be some actual usage or benefit to top tier crypto.
Look,
Have I got? Would you say that recently you're evolving to where? Go ahead,
Joe. Where are you on what's called altcoins? There's 15 or 20.
That's what I
where
know.
are you, Joe?
But you, when you came in, you said, yeah, that I probably only own Bitcoin, and you act like that's okay for me because I don't own all the garbage. I think you were thinking. So I just get the feel.
Garbage was your word.
I know, but are you
It was
warming
not
up
that
to
kind of a word.
Huh?
It was not that kind of a word. That you used.
Actually,
that's right.
Joe, for the public, used a stronger word than garbage.
I did, but are you warming up to? Do you see that it's probably here to stay and something that could be useful?
This is something I said to students 4 and 5 years ago.
I know, but you didn't say it to once you were the SEC chairman.
No. That this field will not long persist without investor protection or consumer protection. Number two, many of these projects, without prejudging anyone, are tapping into the public's interest to raise money. That's the classic securities sort of protections that you put on place. You can decide to go long or short these projects, but you need the disclosures. And as it relates to Bitcoin, my predecessor and I have said that's not a security. You now have a way that you can actually express that view, buy into that through exchange traded products, traded on NASDAQ, traded on New York Stock Exchange and the like.
Okay, that's a yes then.
Where do you think Bitcoin is going to be in our society 20 years from now? If you were to sort of,
I don't really know.
You have any idea?
I don't know. I mean, there's 7 billion people around the globe. I'm not going to make a prediction as to any one project, but what I would say is the field is going to have a challenge building trust.
Right.
And it already has a challenge building trust when there's so many fraudsters, scammers, grifters in the field, and there are.
But what happened?
So a couple points there. I mean, there's a lot of fraudsters and grifters in the penny market, industry, and nothing gets done about that. There's a lot of fraud and grifters that went public via the SPAC thing, and he didn't do anything about that. So I don't know. I would say his tone is changing significantly. And when I say significantly, I mean small, in a very small way, but significant to Gary Gensler. Watched the Theo Von Cuban podcast. Oh, I would like to see that. I love Theo Von. I think he's so funny. Thank you for that, Floor. I mean, it's his fault. There's a problem. Look, guys. So let me just put this way, and this is going to be the last thing I have to say because I have to jump. If I was head of the SEC in Gary Gensler's position, and I wanted everything to be securities, day one, I would have came out and said, we understand the securities rules do not work as is. We are going to make changes so that you can operate your token as a security in the United States. And we will make it clear that the token itself obviously is not the security, but this is what you need to do to comply with securities rules. And then I will make it nice and easy for people to come in and register and make it very clear, make a special application for them to do that. It's not that hard. The thing is this was meant to be impossible. It was meant so no one could actually complete it. It was meant to stifle the industry. So we need to keep that in mind. It was not difficult to make this work. It was not difficult to make it so this industry could work as securities offering. It's simple. It would be so easy to do. It could have been done overnight, and he knows that. The point is they don't want it to. The point is it makes the industry look bad if they can continue to keep it on the outside and continue to blow the whistle and say they're not complying with anything. But the reality is it's not possible to comply. It's as simple as this. Guys, tell me how in the world you could treat XRP as a security when the rules for securities is a specific settlement time. How are you going to settle an XRP transaction in 2 days? It doesn't make any sense. And there it lies. The number one issue, it was never meant to work. It was never meant to be followed. It was meant to say, hey, you're not doing this. You're part of the problem. And it was easy cases for them to essentially farm revenue out of companies. That's how I see it. I don't think it could be more obvious. Like I said, if someone came to me and I was SEC chair and said, hey, make this industry securities and make it compliant, I would have said, great. I'm a huge fan of the industry. I want it to work. I want to create a special way for you to come in, register your product under the SEC, and for us to get this trading and compliantly in the United States where there's no negative impact on the underlying functionality of what you're trying to do. We just want to make sure that investors understand what they're buying into. Guys, no one is going to care if that is being done via a securities offering or via some kind of disclosure. So thought that was super interesting. Guys, thank you so much for coming today. You guys are absolutely incredible. I've got to wrap it up here. You know how it works. Same thing, same time tomorrow. Guys, thank you so much. You guys are absolutely incredible. And for now, pickle out.